Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Canadian Electricity Association's first Conversation Series webinar of 2021. The Canadian Electricity Association is the voice of the electricity industry in Canada. My name is Farhan Mirza. I'm with the CEA, and I'm pleased to be your host for today's webinar. The Conversation Series features presentations from CEA's corporate partners, and the series will highlight a variety of Canadian and international solutions to current and future challenges faced by the industry. Working with CEA's corporate partners, these webinars have been developed to be of specific interest to those working in the electric utility space from generation through to the customer. For a list of upcoming sessions, please check out CEA's website at www.electricity.ca. Before we get started, there are a few housekeeping items I'd like to remind you of. Our session today is scheduled to run for 1 hour from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Questions can be asked, and we actually encourage you to do so as they come to mind by typing them into your chat function on your screen. They will be asked at the end of the presentation. And a brief survey will be sent to our webinar participants following the session today. We very much appreciate your candid feedback and are interested in any other topics that you'd like to see featured on the Canadian Electricity Association's Conversation Series in the future. And please keep in mind, our future webinars and events through CEA's newsletter will be shared to you monthly. With over 6,000 subscribers, Current Affairs, much like the national newspaper, is the place to go for Canadian industry news as we connect the national value chain from generation through to the customer. If you'd like to receive Current Affairs, you can subscribe to this free publication on our website, again, at electricity.ca. On to today's webinar. We have Datch today presenting the future of work, the voice of AI built for the utility industry. Artificial intelligence is leading the digital transformation of work, and Datch has created the first and most advanced voice AI interface for electric utility operations. Human-to-asset interactions allow workers to retrieve and submit data in real time while remaining focused on the job at hand. This intelligent addition to the workspace has shown significant improvements in data quality, worker safety, and operational efficiency. In today's session, you will learn more about the opportunities, use cases, and competitive value when evolving your organizations with voice AI. Our presenters today are Mark Fosdyke, CEO and co-founder of Datch, and Junaid Farouk, Head of Strategy and Business Development at Datch. Gentlemen, welcome to today's Conversation Series. I'd like to turn the webinar over to you.
Thanks, Farhan. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Junaid Farouk. I'm the Head of Strategy and Business Development here at Datch. This is me on the right. I am in Salt Lake City, Utah. So I don't know if any of you are skiers or snowboarders. We just got 4 feet of snow last week. So it's been pretty nice. Might go out this weekend, but yeah, really happy to be here and to talk about Datch and to learn more from your operations. So just as a bit of a background about myself and about our CEO, Mark, who's also on the call. So I actually come from the automotive space and utility space. So I used to work at Tesla for a few years on their charging infrastructure and policy team. But previously, before that, I was heavily involved in the utility industry with the American Gas Association, who you may have heard of in the U.S. They're the National Gas Utility Trade Association. And definitely coordinated a lot with on the electric side as well. A lot of the utilities in are combination of gas and electric. So definitely know a lot about utility operations. And Mark, our CEO, he comes from the aerospace and submarine world. And so at Datch, where a lot of us are engineers and we sort of understand the industrial sort of processes and workspaces and the efficiencies and inefficiencies that come about with large operations such as yourselves. And so this is sort of why Datch was created. And how you can think about Datch is essentially like an Alexa or a Siri that you might have at home, but really designed around the industrial environment, industrial processes, and the industrial worker. And what Datch is enabling workers to do is capturing field information and observations that workers are doing in the field and really interacting with your system in a much more seamless and natural way. And the outcome being the rich structured data set that your organization is really craving for, and being able to provide that in a much more natural way than possible before. So as a quick introduction, Datch we're using verbal conversations, which are the most natural form of human communication. and allowing workers to make real-time observations right in the field without stopping work, and then using our world-class AI engine to structure that information in a format that's useful for the company, in a way that the company can do analysis and modeling, and create risk models that can increase the efficiency and safety of the organization. And in doing so, what you're doing is you're reducing the time spent on processes by up to 90%. You're incentivizing workers to actually submit reports frequently, and those reports are going to have substantially more quality information coming out of them, doing it themselves. And in addition to that, because it's voice, and I'll show you a few demo videos in a few slides, you're recording second by second interactions of everything that's happening in the field, right? So the worker is speaking to the phone, to the app, and all of that data is being recorded in real time, time-stamped, and that has its own value, which we'll discuss later. So the problem of field data capture is really universal. We work in a lot of industry verticals and applications that really cross these verticals, including utilities, manufacturing, mining, aerospace, and really with the same goal of improving that worker experience for frontline data collection and recall of system information. So right now, as you probably know, in your organizations, you have ERP systems, HR systems, all of these sort of databases that are existing, that are really dense. They have a lot of information in them, but getting data in and out of those is really tiresome and tedious and not user-friendly in a lot of cases. And that's why we've designed Datch to make this easier. So just a little bit of context about kind of who we're working with right now. We're currently in contract with the New York Power Authority and New York State, as well as a major utility in New Zealand, just in the utility vertical, as well as other companies in the other verticals. So, Datch is, just a little bit of news here in context about what's happening. We're really proud to be working with a range of industry partners, including Boeing, who recently made a strategic investment in Datch. And as we mentioned before, we're working with several utilities worldwide, and we're really trying to show folks how far voice technology has come and the use now in the industrial sector that kind of was not possible before due to the advancement. So a very high-level overview here. We tend to say that a well-run organization is a bit of a curse in that a well-run organization has more diligent workers collecting and processing information, but in doing so, these workers are now spending less time on their value-added work. And so what that is resulting in is either you have gaps in the reports where workers are just too busy and they're not able to provide reports to the same level of detail that the company needs, or you have workers that are spending too much time. And so in addition to that, you may have some legacy reporting methods that are just make reporting difficult. The forms are very complicated. There's a lot of fields involved, and workers are just overwhelmed. And the underlying outcome here is going to be inefficient and potentially risky operations, especially when you talk about safety reports that I know for utilities are having difficulty with collecting safety reports. No one really likes to submit those. And that's where really we designed the solution is bringing conversation technology to one, increase the efficiency of the organization by removing the waste, but also humanizing the reporting process by allowing folks not even having to look at a paper form or a screen, and really can submit reports in real time in whatever situation the worker is in a ditch, on a pole, any sort of physical environment. And so at its core, what Datch is a real-time conversational knowledge capture engine. And so if you look here on the left side, you essentially have this dialogue happening between your field employee and the Datch interface, right? So you have a person who's able to kind of speak to Datch naturally, and Datch is going to be able to recognize key terms and phrases, including company jargon, acronyms, and slang that are used in the field, and then structure all of that informal language into a much more into a formal report that includes metadata, that includes any sort of tagging, functional locations, all of the just descriptive information that would have really not been captured before to the same level of speed and accuracy. And what you're also able to do is, before a person hits export, you have these required fields that the report will not be able to be submitted. And so Datch is going to be able to prompt the user, okay, maybe they said this one phrase, hey, Datch, create a maintenance log for this valve at this location. They missed a couple of fields here. Datch is going to ask you what's the description. The user can say the valve has significant corrosion, recommend replacement. What's the status? And then they can assign it to someone, add photos, videos, media, that sort of thing. And so this way, all of this is done in very quick succession. And I'll have a couple of videos that'll show you this in real time. And across multiple processes, right? So we're seeing a lot of use cases where Datch is very adaptable to basically any process, and every process that that is used, that Datch is used for, is going to be customized to the organization. We will get a list of, we will look at your processes. We will determine, okay, this is how it's going to work. We'll create the fields, the variables, that sort of thing, so that you get these consistent reports from your entire field workforce, no matter how everyone says, talks about an asset or talks about a situation. It's all going to be forced and coerced into the same format. And these are just some examples of databases that these are pretty big ones, SAP and IBM Maximo, but really we work across pretty multiple databases. One second here, we work across custom databases as well, internal databases that could be created by the organization. So we're sort of agnostic as long as the database has an API. So I know I talked a lot here. I'm going to jump. We actually have a poll question that we have where we'd like to just get a feel of who's on the line and get an understanding of the size of your organization. So the first question is really, how many employees does your company have on site or in the field? And Danielle is going to help with the poll itself. So I'll hand it over to her. And you should see on the screen the question and the ability to answer the poll. So right now, I believe the poll is open. And the answers here are 1 to 50, 51 to 100, 101 to 500, 500 to 1,000, and 1,000 plus. So Danielle, this is operational, right? Okay, awesome. And looking at the results here, pretty interesting. So it looks like we have a good spread across the lower regions, but quite a lot of companies that have more than 1,000 field employees. So that's all good to know. And Datch is very scalable. We're really agnostic to the size of the organization. And generally we start off, you can start off small and expand upon the number of processes and the number of users over time as you see a need. So that level of flexibility is really key. So I'm going to show you a couple of videos now, probably super eager to see this in action. So I have a couple of videos here. Just give me a second while I pull these up. So these are going to be examples of Datch and a couple of different processes. Let me just give me a sec while I pull this up. So the first one is going to be a hazard report. And the second one will be of a work order and adding notes to that work order. So the first one, let me pull it up here, and I'm going to get muted while this happens. So
record an issue for the rear left brake rotor assembly.
Issue record assigned.
Set the issue.
What's the issue?
The test rig is overhanging on the platform and is a tripping hazard.
Got it, thanks.
The rig is also vibrating due to loose bolts.
Got it, thanks.
Set the action.
What is the action?
Recommend replacement of the rotor by next week.
Got it, thanks.
Also recommend a quarterly inspection be conducted by the maintenance team.
Got it, thanks.
Export.
Exporting.
Okay, awesome. Cool. So what you saw there, and if you just give me a second, I will pull up something else so I can scroll through this a little bit better. So I'm just going to scroll through this to go over some of the video you saw. So what happened here was the specific record was pulled up directly from the initial phrase. So first, you want to, the action was record an issue on this particular asset, which is the rear left brake rotor assembly. And then the Datch is going to dive into the database and pull up the appropriate record that's here. So I never actually said the designer or any of this category, all of this stuff, but it recognized that. It pulled up the relevant, the name of the form. So now you basically have the record that's pulled up, and then the issues are the notes that are being taken on that record. And in this case, it was a hazard report. So there's all of this hazard information that can be submitted very quickly. And then what is the action here? Recommend replacement of it, and then conduct an inspection. I could have added photos. In this one, I didn't actually add photos, but that was also possible. And then the record would have been exported at that point to a record that is, these are going to be fields that are going to be in your SAP system or ERP system. So I'm going to show a second video now of a work order and adding notes to the work order in SAP, which is term history right.
Search work orders.
Say the work order or filter.
Filter by work orders created in the last month.
Say the work order or filter. What would you like to do now?
Create history right.
What's the notification text?
I conducted the inspection of the belt. Everything seemed okay.
What's the user status?
Initiate.
Save the history right.
Yes.
History right created.
Okay, great. And so in this example, you saw a work or the searching of the work orders, the addition of notes to the work order, and the closeout after the assignment to a person. So again, very rapid, very quick, very accurate. And so, these two examples that we showed were of when the person knows what type of process they actually want to create, right? So the first person was, I want to create an issue, a report, or a safety report, or really any type of report. All of those fields are customized to your organization. Second one, the person knew that they had to pull up a work order or pull up the list, filter by those work orders by whatever variable they wanted, and then add notes to it. There is another way that Datch can be used, and this is a very powerful way. So we call it play-by-play, and what this means is essentially a running observation list of a job that could happen over the space of a few hours or a few days or a few weeks or whatever. And so you have this almost like an open note recording sheet that has a NLP engine attached to it. So anything that is dropped into this frame is going to be pulled into relevant forms, structured in a way that can be used for a variety of applications. And let me just show you what I mean by this. So, in this initial phrase, imagine there's just like a blank screen. It says, how can I help you? The person comes up to the job site and says, this is an inspection, and they need to conduct an inspection of this valve at this particular street, 123 Main Street. So the person says, I began the line inspection of the valve at this main street. Datch is going to run this script, or sorry, run this phrase through the engine, pull out all relevant information, metadata, tags, inspection type in this case. And you see here, there are required fields for this process. So until all of these are filled out, this won't be submitted. Maybe 15, 20 minutes later, they shut off the flow to the valve. I conducted a 90-degree turn, encountering resistance of the turn. All of these minor observations, but could be important in the future. The valve is showing corrosion, and then an action, recommend a team be dispatched. And I completed the inspection, so you have a time-stamped entry of this entire experience. And so this type of interface is really good for things like an inspection in this case, or for training purposes, right? So you have someone, a really diligent employee, and you want to track how they do things. And so you have this training or knowledge retention function here, where you can walk through all those events of a particular job, and or even say there's an incident that happens, and you really want to know what are the events that led up to this incident. And now you have a systemic record of, the 50 people out that were on that job that day, or out on site that day, minute by minute, even second by second, of what they were doing. And now you can sort of backtrack and go and check exactly what happened. And this really helps with things like compliance, right? So now you have this legal system of record of everything that happened in the field. It's all updated to your system, and this could make compliance a lot easier. Pray to God you don't have an audit. That everyone has audits, but and those can be pretty nerve-wracking. But now you have a record of everything that happened, and it can give you a real peace of mind. And just knowing that you have this really high-quality information coming in, and from things like safety reports, that sort of thing. And again, there's a lot of applications here. We see a lot used in maintenance or work orders, where you can raise notifications, open, close work orders, that sort of thing. Okay, so second question, what tool do you use for work or asset management in your organization? So this is going to be a multiple choice question, because we know some folks have multiple systems, and the other is it's a custom tool or other. And so I think Danielle has it up right now. And so we'll give it a few seconds for people to respond. And like I said before, we're really agnostic to the database you have on hand. And the goal really is to tie all of these databases through Datch and use voice to activate and trigger multiple databases at once, and making it this real powerful interface across the entire organization for multiple databases, so to speak. Okay, cool. So I think the results are coming up here. I'm assuming everyone can see these results, right, Danielle? Audience, yeah. So it looks like we have SAP, and there's a lot of custom tools. They're sort of leading ahead here, some with Maximum and some with other databases. Great, thanks for that. Thanks for responding, everyone. And this is just a summary of the features and applications of Datch. It's the most important thing to remember what this is you're bringing this human-centric approach to field data capture and creating this environment of trust in reporting and submitting information internally and externally, improving really the bottom line and overall workplace visibility, and really making this incident safety reporting much easier for folks, and really getting that compliance that you need, and the level of insight that you need on tracking incidents that are right now quite difficult to do. These are some examples of some of the clients we're working with. I pulled out the energy utility one specifically. We have one, an organization in New Zealand who is using Datch for work order completion and notifications. They have an SAP system, so they're really looking for increased productivity, more volume, and better quality data. Just some case study information coming out of one of our manufacturers. they found that after using Datch, they were able to reduce the amount of time spent on digital processes by about 75%. They already have some digital processes in place, and they were able to optimize them even more. And that sort of accounted to adding an additional person per team of 50 each week. These are just some of the metrics coming out of that use case, where there was almost 200% more information. Now this is actually even higher than this. They were able to increase productivity pretty significantly, and just making those decisions a lot quicker and getting the data into the system a lot faster, just because of that increased user experience. And final poll question, what areas of improvement are you looking to achieve through digital transformation? And I know there's probably all of these, but we're just interested to know maybe what's the highest priority for you. Yeah, so I mean, that really hits upon all of these. And so we're just interested to know, which processes people have in mind, at least for the immediate term, and then which are sort of more medium term, long term sort of goals for the organization. Okay, the poll is still open. Thanks, Danielle, for helping out with this. Don't actually know how to use polls, or trigger them at least. Awesome. Okay, so we're seeing, looks like productivity is really high up and safety is really high up there. Data quality for sure, and then compliance. So really, really good to know. Thanks for all the feedback. And just to get started, like we're very, like I said before, Datch is very scalable, and how we initially start off is we talk to your teams, and we actually talk sometimes with multiple departments at once at the same organization, because they have different processes. And we just want to learn about the processes first. Then we will, the integration actually doesn't happen immediately. We'll do a pilot, and the pilot we can actually do without an integration, where the data is just kind of stored a little separately, at least for that immediate period, which can happen in basically less than a month. We kind of try to do a very quick pilot to get the use case out there, get it in the hands of your users, get their feedback, do some success metrics at the end of the week. And then afterwards, we have a world-class team who will help with this onboarding and training. We understand like this is kind of a new interface. I mean, voice sounds simple, but when people are actually using it, they do need a little bit of training and hand-holding, in which we provide all of that information. We have a dedicated customer success team to help with that entire process, and they're going to be with the users the whole time and really providing that update and support. And this is our contact information, and I'm going to open it up for questions and answers. So thank you, everyone, for this. And I believe, Farhan, I'm handing it over to you.
Yeah, hey, thanks very much for today's presentation, Janae. I thought that was great to learn about kind of your voice AI solution. I thought it was very relevant, especially in today's world. We're looking to reduce waste and be more efficient and streamline all our processes. So thank you for sharing a little bit more about your solution. We're going to open it up to Q&A from the audience. You guys have been great with participating so far. So if you have questions, please feel free to type them into the chat function that you see there on your screen. As we wait for responses to come in, I'll maybe kick things off for you guys, Junaid and Mark. Can you talk a little bit about how Datch is different to other speech-to-text software?
Sure, I can jump in there. So yeah, no, that's a good question, and there's a couple of layers that with voice when it comes to voice solutions. So you've basically got a speech-to-text layer. Then you have an NLP layer, which is natural language processing, and then you've got that integration layer, which is, where is that data going? Is it going to a database somewhere? And so when you design a voice AI for industry, it's going to be quite different to what you'll see with your Siris or your Alexas or your Google Assistants, and that comes firstly in the text-to-speech speech-to-text layer, where we have to curate for industrial jargon and acronyms and the things you typically talk about. And there's several parts to that, which I won't go into in too much detail, but but it includes that ability for Datch to learn the language of your particular company or your particular site, or even you as an individual. And then on the NLP front, so natural language processing, that's a really fundamental shift compared to what we've seen in industry before. So like Junaid mentioned, I come from the aerospace industry, and we saw a couple of voice solutions come through, and they were for things like voice picking or some basic work instructions. And they were often very narrow applications where it would recognize keywords and things like that, but wouldn't necessarily be able to interpret that into complex intent structures, like I think you would have seen in the demo just then. And so we're able to really adapt across to different processes, and really with that goal of becoming that standardized interface for anyone that's kind of deskless in the organization. And so that means that, if you have a safety issue arise, you can just say, report a hazard or report an incident. But then if you need to, complete a work order, you can just say, complete the work order for, this asset, and really just become that standardized interface. And that's really comes about from that flexibility. And then lastly, it's that integration layer. So that's really that ability to speak to SAP or speak to IBM Maximo, or speak to any custom database via those APIs. And we have a team that's dedicated to making sure that we're sending the right data through, that we manage to tick all the right security boxes, and pull that information across into Datch whenever is required. So really those three layers is where we're really differentiated on the voice front.
Thank you, that's great. Want to also ask, which processes can Datch be used on? So there's a lot, but which ones can be used on?
Yeah, great. Another great question. There's quite a number of areas. Like I think in one of the earlier slides there, we often have to categorize across areas because there's almost infinite number of processes that could be done by Datch, and it's often up to the organization that we're working with to determine what they want to do there. But a good framework for figuring this out is by thinking about it in terms of process volume. And process volume is basically how long does the process take, how many times a day are you doing that process, and how many people in your organization are doing that process. So this is why we'll see something like raising notifications that you'll see in SAP, where you come across an issue and you need to raise that, and then that gets flagged into your system, and then a work order gets generated against that. You might have 4,000 field technicians out on site across the state, and they might be coming across several issues a day, and it's very easy to calculate the process volume on that. So normally this might take 2 people or 3 people in the process of raising that ticket. It might be radioing it in, writing it down, transferring that into a database, and getting it across to that planner or engineer or whoever's organizing it from that point. So say that's a 5 or 10 minute process, to be generous there. Then if you can work out what value would that add to the organization if I could reduce that process volume by even 50%, and then from there we go, okay, well let's start with that one, and then look at work order fulfillment. Where does the process volume? What does the process volume calculation do in that situation? So that's when it comes to productivity, and when it comes to data quality, it's another good framework to think about where you're doing processes that take you a little while, that you might be taking observations or collecting knowledge as you go, and where do you need to get improved data quality, and from there, that's when we go, okay, well, maybe history writes against your work orders, or maybe it's Gemba walks for safety. But yeah, dozens and dozens of different process areas, and really it's up to the company to determine that, and then we just work to make sure that we can help you execute that as best as possible.
That's great. Thank you for that answer. Got another question coming in from the audience. Assuming the app resides on your mobile device, can you add pictures to the file, or state take picture? Give it a command.
Yep. Pictures are super important. As we often see, and this is what I experienced in industry as well, is that sometimes you'd have to have a notepad and a camera with you, or maybe a phone, and you take photos around on site, maybe jot some notes down. But yeah, definitely, you might have even seen it in one of those examples. There's a section where you can take pictures or upload photos. And what you're also getting, especially in those play-by-play interactions where a job might take an hour or 3 hours, is that every observation you make is timestamped, and then every picture you take is also timestamped, and you can really get that information back as a sequence of events, and really replay. This is where the knowledge retention really comes into play, and planning and upstream insights really come to play, is when you can get that sequence of events data nice and structured against every job that's done.
That's great, thank you. So kind of segueing into that, how does the Datch technology work, really?
So in terms of the stack, really there's the hardware and the software layer. Hardware, everything is off the shelf. There's no special headsets or anything that we create. So firstly on noise, you might have noisy environments, and in that case you might want to pair it with a headset, like a Bluetooth headset. So for example, you might have something like this. It's just off the shelf Honeywell headset, standard class 5 hearing protection, with a microphone that you can pull around, and then even a push to talk capability, so you can just hit your headset and start talking. There's sometimes that's useful, sometimes less so. You can just do it straight off the device. Then the second step is for actually running the application. You need to have an Android or iOS device, and then after that, it's just once Datch is processing that, we need to connect to your system through an API, and so that's the other part of the technology, is making sure that information we can send it straight to we can host that information on our servers for you if necessary, but if a lot of the time, especially in the utility space, you want that information sent through to something like SAP or Maximo. And so usually there's the API layer as well. So really, the hardware, software, and then the integration layer.
Awesome, thank you. And can the Datch software be used to search your database as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So we don't necessarily do the full knowledge base, dig into everything like you might with like an industrial bot or something like that. But really it's really good for digging. Voice is really good for digging deep into databases for specific information. And so there's certain processes that comes into play, and adds a lot of value straight away. So things like solving problems or solving for downtime. So if you have an asset that's gone down, often the first step is to go, okay, well, where has this happened before? And so you might escalate that. Someone will have to dive into SAP, spend 10 minutes searching for the functional location for the actual particular asset, and then from there, start doing some filtering and keyword searching for the history of where that problem has occurred. So voice can be really good for just saying, hey Datch, why is there a fault at the circuit breaker at this asset? And then Datch can use the intent taken from that unstructured sentence, and then pull that into a structured query, and then send it through to the system, the databases that we've connected with. And so that type of question would indicate to Datch that this is a maintenance and operations issue. So we'll go in and go to the PM module of SAP, and then pull out the work order history where work has been done on that circuit breaker, and where that particular type of fault has been mentioned. And it can do that all within seconds. And sometimes when you've got downtime happening, you know, it can be very expensive. And so we know that problem solving is really important in that case. So that's one example. But simpler examples are when you might just be like in the I think it was the second example Junaid showed, where you might just want to see what your work order history is for the day. And you might just want to say, you know, show me work orders show me the work orders that have been assigned to me in the last week, and then it will just go straight in and pull those up instead of having to go into your system, dig around for half an hour, and then print them out. You can just get it straight onto the device. So some simple stuff and some more complex stuff, but yeah, again, the framework is there. If you need information quickly and specifically, this is where it comes into play.
That's great. Actually, I had a great question come in. Does Datch only work in English, and has it been tested with a variety of accents and speakers?
Yes and no. So we have English. It's just English at the moment. So we have the option right now to add in some more languages, but we choose to just support English at the moment, mostly because we want to have that really top level support for every customer. We'll probably bring in a few extra languages come 2022, early 2022. So a lot of companies we're working with kind of the English language speaking teams until we're ready to roll out to, you know, the next languages, which are looking to be German, French, and Spanish. But yeah, on the English front, we have the option to select for accents. So if you go into the settings tab, you can go through and select for different accents. I think Canadian would have to fall under United States, so apologies for that. But to me, as an Australian, it does sound the same, and I think to Datch, it can pick you pretty accurately if you've got the US accent settings on.
No, that's great. No, it's great that French is kind of in the pipes, especially for here in Canada. So with the bilingualism. Yeah. Now, can it be interfaced to SCADA or ICS for operational purposes, such as open switch 1, 2, 3?
Yes, it can be. For that type of conversation, yeah, definitely worth having some of our technical team join the conversation, but because a lot of that's real-time databases, and often we're looking at kind of informational databases. But I believe we've done some work on that front, and yeah, our CTO comes from the SCADA world, in working in Germany for Siemens, but yeah, definitely. As long as there is that ability to either integrate through API or you know, figure out kind of the information that we're looking to pull in, then yeah, that's feasible. Yeah, definitely would want to talk through the use case, but yeah, absolutely, there's that ability to connect to most systems, as long as you have that access.
That is great. We will maybe give it a couple more seconds for any other questions. So if you guys have any final questions for our speakers, feel free to type them in. But is there anything else that you'd like to kind of add, or anything that you want to kind of leave the audience with?
I don't know about you, Junaid, but I guess one thing to kind of that I kind of just to round out the presentation there, you know, what we're really excited to see is this convergence of a bunch of technologies that have been happening, and this is one of the reasons why we started Datch a couple of years ago. One was this really rapid improvement in that speech to text technology, and then there's the cloud technology and network technology, as well as mobility technology as well. And so we started seeing this coming from industry, I always saw this issue where a lot of technology seems to miss the deskless worker, so the people that are out in the field. But all the new technologies that have come through, so mainframes, desktops, laptops, phones, really impact the white collar space and has helped with productivity and helped with making workload easier and getting more information. But often it seems to pass over the blue collar space, and there's quite a lot of white papers coming out that are really focusing on why is this, and it's because of that really hands-on nature of their work, and the convenience factor, or the inconvenience factor, I should say, of those previous kind of revolutions in technology. And so what a lot of people are kind of converging on is looking at the future of frontline work as voice visual. So with AI, it's really allowing us to allow workers to be in their kind of natural environment where they're getting their tool time, they're getting their value add, they're adding value to the company, and not having to take off those gloves, having to clean their hands, go off to a desktop somewhere, or to use their two greasy thumbs on a tiny little keyboard. As the technology just keeps rapidly improving year on year, that it's gonna move that direction where voice becomes that primary input method for the frontline workers, who 80% of the world's workforce is the deskless workforce, and there's just a massive opportunity to really make an impact there, and that's really why we're doing what we're doing, and we're seeing even today some really great progress with companies like Nipah and Boeing and a lot of these companies that are really looking for digital transformation solutions. So we're super excited about the future there, and I'm glad to have been able to do this webinar.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much for answering those questions, guys, and I thought it was really helpful. And thank you for the presentation as well. With that, we'll come towards the conclusion of today's session. For our upcoming conversation series webinars, we've got a couple in the pipes. On Thursday, March 25th, Lexop will speak on new expectations in customer care. And Thursday, April 22nd, Guidehouse will be joining us and talking about asset management to assets investment planning. As always, more webinars are constantly being added, so you can find all of the information on those on our website at electricity.ca, as well as on our monthly newsletter, Current Affairs. In closing, once again, I'd like to thank Datch, and I would like to thank Mark and Junaid for taking the time today. And we'll hopefully see you guys very soon. And thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.